Here we go. Welcome to Double Dribble Bucks. This is Seth. With me, as always, is my good friend Brett. How are we doing tonight, Brett?
Doing great, Seth. Celebrating the Emirates NBA Cup win, which obviously means game over, right? I think that's what ESPN said, that Giannis was like, "Yep, this is it, game over. I did it." I think that
Yep,
was the
job's
quote.
done.
Yeah, job's done. I don't know what to talk about anymore. I mean, we did it all. There's nothing else to look back on.
Yeah, this is the
Um,
last pod of the season. Nothing else to
last
play
pod.
for. So,
It might be the last pod ever, because at this point, like, once you've won the cup once, I mean, after that, I don't even understand why you would try. So this might be a very quick pod, everybody. Sorry.
yeah, Emirates NBA Cup. That's exciting. That's especially after that rough start, right? We were just like, let's just claw back to get some respect and get a decent
Yeah,
playoff seed. I guess
I
that's
do
an
think
over
that
with, but yeah, this is great.
I do think they needed it, to be honest. I mean, I don't know what it is. I mean, the NBA Cup, if they really care about it, I mean, it's kind of cool that there's extra money in some of those rookies. Some rookie that I don't even remember the name wanted to buy like a house in Iowa or something like that. So, I mean, there is some cool aspects to it.
Mhm.
But I think the way that we started and the chemistry, and like, you need something like this to kind of kickstart, just get that vibe going. Like, we can do things, we can play together. Like, so I think that was kind of a needed thing. Doc really needed it. The team needed it. And then at the end of the day, like, to be able to beat a good Thunder team and to do it pretty easily, has to build some confidence, for other Bucks fans out there.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think they did, I don't know if they needed it, but it seemed to really matter, and I'm sure we'll look back at this, end of the season, wherever the season leads, I'm sure we'll look back at this, kind of make differences to it. But it seems in the moment that it was pretty important for them to win something together, kind of gain confidence, like we can do this, and just work as a team towards a goal and achieving that goal. I think is really a big team building thing. I mean, all Damian Lillard could talk about in those little like post game interviews was coming together as a team.
Yeah.
Like that was the main thing that they learned and they drew out of that rough start, and to culminate in the Emirates NBA Cup champions is is awesome. And yeah, I think it's gonna help them to get to that next step. Now we want a top seed. We want to get to the championship. We want to be NBA champions. And so to be able to look back at this and get confidence from it, and not even just you'd say that about young guys a lot, I think, which I think is true for, like the benefactor and those guys. But even for, especially because it's, Dame joining the team last year, and it was a rough, year plus really to like kind of get things going. And I think so even for Dame and Giannis, I think it's a big building block for them to like have this on their resume, know that they've done this and they can win at the highest level. And like, this is like, they can make this work. And we now we can see success. We can actually see proof that this can work. And now let's take it to the real, NBA championship.
That's true. And I like the way you put that too, is it is that visual of, when you're in professional sports, like, visualizing yourself winning it all has to be a part of what you're doing. But like, this does give you a little bit of taste of like what that's like. I mean, the NBA does a good job of having some fanfare to it. There's, confetti, there's a trophy, they do extra interviews. Like, they kind of make it a thing. So, the team really can visualize like what they can do together. But it was good that we did this as a team, like you were talking about, because I was looking at some notes I had from a few weeks ago. Now, in the Cup, we didn't lose a single game, which is pretty impressive. So I can't remember exactly when this was, but the issues I was having during that game were lazy passing, which is something I've talked about before, and that hasn't been corrected. But I put it like, this isn't a rec league. Stop acting like it. I mean, sometimes these like cross court passes or these kind of like layup, I don't even know how to describe it, but these little there's no force behind it. So they just get picked off pretty easy. And I said, Pete Maravich was one of the best passers ever. So what was his secret? How did he make these passes work? And now professionals are just kind of like half-assing. It looks like a half-ass pass, I'm from the audience. So that was something that was weird. And then, but there was the energy. I feel like sometimes, we're not going for contested balls. We're still having a lot of just watching the play unfold versus like reacting. And I said, I'd actually almost rather see some overreaction sometimes. Like I was surprised on the game I was watching that the benefactor was not crashing the board on an obvious miss. Everyone was just watching it and it kind of like bounced away and the other team got the offensive rebound. But, the big thing here was there was a moment where Giannis went down and there was nobody like getting his back. Eventually, of course, people come over and help him up. But, when you watch like football on Sunday and somebody like hits a quarterback, what they deem is a little too late or something like that, you have the entire team up in the face being like, don't touch the quarterback. That's not cool. Whatever they talk about, I'm sure they don't say it like that, but
they're real nice about it.
Yeah. Hey man, not cool. But I kind of wanted to see that from this Bucks team. I don't need to see it from every NBA team, but like it's Giannis. Like if he goes down, you guys should be immediately, going after, like not going after in like a bad way, but like racing over to make sure he's okay, and maybe even confronting that other person like you actually saw in the NBA Cup when Hartenstein went after the benefactor when he said he thought he hit SGA a little too late on the three.
What did he even do?
I don't know. I mean, Hartenstein, he clearly thought something else happened.
The announcers were on board. They're like, oh yeah, Jackson touched him. I'm not even sure what happened. The announcers seemed to understand it. I like saw the replay. I'm like, I don't understand why Hartenstein's so upset here, but
I didn't get it either.
To your point, I guess there was a little something there, and it was, you don't need much to stand up for the best player on your team.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like, when we played the Pistons, Isaiah Stewart, Beef Stew, as Marcus Johnson calls him, which I love.
Oh yeah.
That was the nickname, by the way, we forgot to mention on the last show. Beef Stew.
Yes,
I think it's a pretty good one. But yeah, like when he pulls Giannis down, like the rest of the team needs to kind of be like, we're going to go to war right now.
Yeah.
Like you need to have calming heads to make sure that it's not turning into an actual fight. But like, I don't know, I just was missing some energy there. So anyway, with those old notes, it's nice to kind of see that the team seem to be playing really well and gelling together. And I don't know, very, very well needed win.
Yeah, regarding the passing, that is something that's kind of frustrated me the more I'm watching with the benefactor. If you missed our last pod, Ajax, Andre Jackson Jr. is the benefactor. And he is pretty casual with his passes. A lot of times he'll especially like he'll get the rebound and dribble it up the court and then just basically to cross court, and then he's going to give it up to Damian Lillard or Giannis probably, but it's just kind of like he's not going to do anything with it. I'm just like, I got it past half court, now I'm going to give it to you. And whenever that happens, he has this kind of underhand kind of pass.
Yeah,
it's just like too casual for me, and I don't like it. I think one time it did end up in a turnover, like someone stole it or something happened with it. I'm just like, just normal passes, do a chest pass or something.
I hope you yelled out too casual.
Yeah, but he's a lot of times when he's passing, he's just like trying to get a little fancy with it, and I'm not sure what it is. It's not cool. I think maybe he thinks it's cool, or he's tricking the other team a little bit or something. But I'm always nervous now. Like when he's about to pass it, I'm just like, is it going to be a clean pass? Are we going to get it to the guy that he's passing it to? It's also one of those things that I bet you Doc hates that. And I'm like, I bet you this is why you don't play as much. Yeah. There was no reason that you were not in the game in the fourth quarter of this OKC game. And he wasn't. It didn't make any sense. He was awesome. He was so good against Jay.
He was so good.
All game, anytime he was in, he had the best plus minus in the game. It was just And Trent hit a couple of those threes there, but I don't know. It just didn't make sense that he wasn't in like with like 5-6 minutes left just to kind of close this game, make sure that OKC doesn't get back in it. I mean, thankfully they just missed every three they took, but our offense sucked without Ajax in there. And it was just like, it didn't make sense that he wasn't in there. And I think it's because of things like that. It's because of those like weird passes that are just kind of lazy. And, in addition to just kind of making kind of dumb plays on offense, but fix the things that are easily fixable. And one of them is don't have lazy passes, just like be strong with the ball.
It's the fundamentals that you just, it sounds like such an old man thing to say, but it's like, you shouldn't be having turnovers for some basic things like that. Like if it's really good defense, but if you just kind of like half-assed a pass, like, I'm sorry, like you kind of shit the bed on that one. So yeah. The other note I had, just to kind of keep on topic, I don't remember what game this is, but I thought that you would appreciate this. So Thanasis, I believe we're undefeated when he's in attendance.
I believe so. Do you know how many games it's been?
I saw that it was either 7 or 8-0.
Okay. I was actually meaning to look this up. I failed our podcast. Why? Like, what led to him being there? Is this for the rest of the season? Like, what?
There's so many questions. So many questions. So let's dive into that. Number one, whose seats is he getting? Because, like, I don't know. When Robin Lopez was cut, he was able to sit on like the press bench and read a book. And Thanasis looks like he's sitting with an agent. Looks like he's getting like scouted by the Bucks and like is there for like an official visit. Like, I don't know what seat he's sitting in. Mm-hmm. And then to make that matters worse, at the NBA Cup, there was only like 6 total courtside seats that weren't on camera, and Thanasis got one of them. Like, that's crazy. Like, I don't know what's going on. It's very odd. He says he wants to play, but like, can't you just bring him on as a coach or something? Like, I don't understand like what level of involvement he has to have, but like, yeah, pay him whatever you need to pay him to keep Giannis happy. But the last question I'm going to have for you is, so he was wearing a dress shirt with the top button buttoned. And I wanted to ask you, Seth, what do you think of that fashion trend of the dress shirt buttoned all the way to the very top?
That's too tight. I mean,
that's what I think. It's too tight.
I mean, I kind of like a well-fit shirt. It's a somewhat tight shirt. So if I'm buttoning that top button, it's like, it's kind of choking me. Like I'm going to be bothered by it. I'm going to have like an indentation on my neck at the end of the day. And if you're Thanasis and you're up and screaming and jumping around, like, how are you moving? Yeah. I'm surprised it didn't break, actually.
That's a very good point.
The neck muscles, I imagine he's got pretty strong neck muscles. They're being flexed. Only button that when you're wearing a tie. I mean, that's just
right
what you do.
I agree.
I would be okay unbuttoning, more than just the top button. Yeah. Sometimes people do that. I think I'm fine with that. That's kind of a style. I guess I'm questionable on having no shirt underneath and unbuttoning.
Oh yeah.
Okay, that I'm not a fan of that either. But
maybe that makes more sense than to have like, if you have an undershirt on and then you're like buttoned down 3 buttons, people are like, what are you doing?
It's the safe thing to do is just have
exactly all except for the top one.
Yeah. But yeah, I guess that's a style. I didn't know that was a style. It's kind of again more impressive that these like fit guys can do it with these like, tight shirts. So
I agree.
Good for him. I'm not gonna really question what he's doing. I think he's got his podcast. He's producing films. He kind of knows what's going on.
He does, and Giannis plays so much better when he's in attendance. So whether you're take on all the jokes you want about putting him at the end of the bench, or like, I mean, he has to be there somehow. Like, if you're an owner, just be like, yeah, these courtside seats are yours at the very minimum, and then we'll go from there.
Well, I mean, they got to this point, right? Somehow, for some reason, he's been to 7-8 games in a row traveling. It wasn't just Vegas. It wasn't just in Milwaukee. I guess I should look back. I'm assuming there was a road game in there somewhere.
Yeah.
So they've made the point to get him, or he's just buying tickets. I guess that's possible.
That's true.
But you know, I would say it's probably the Bucks are kind of behind that somewhat, and so that's good. That's good to see.
Yeah.
Now, is it something that they're committing to all season, or again, we don't know what's going on here. So hopefully, this is we want you. You're a part of the Bucks organization. We want you here with the team, and this is going to continue. And maybe it evolves into an actual like position where he's getting paid. I mean, I guess he would probably prefer that.
Probably.
So we'll see. We'll see where it goes, but the value's there. We talked about his value. I mean, the value of him just like encouraging all his teammates, not just Giannis, is actually like there's a value there. How much is it worth? You know, who's to say? But I'd say it's worth a roster spot if needed, which I don't think it is. But you know, like you said, just he's like the 17th coach. Who cares? That's fine.
Right at this point. Doesn't seem to be a limit on coaches or coach pay, so just do whatever you need to do.
Yeah. Well, I guess he missed out on the $500,000, so that's unfortunate.
Yeah. He's not officially on the team, so he's not technically allowed to be there.
Yeah, maybe Giannis gave it to him.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. Yeah, Giannis does have a lot of kids now, so he needs that money.
Yeah, he does. The rich get richer.
$250 million does not go as far as you think it does, Seth. Whew.
That's right. Let's give Damian Lillard his flowers for a second here. I don't have it in front of me, but I believe he averaged something like 28 points, 8 assists, 46% on 3-point shooting during the NBA Cup game. So I don't know if it's probably the Vegas games plus the quarterfinals. I'm guessing what that is. Yeah. That's great. I mean, he's been awesome all season. Maybe not the first few games, but I mean, for most of the season, he's been awesome. His numbers are awesome. One thing I did look up is the pick and roll as a ball handler stats. He has the 5th most possessions as a pick and roll ball handler with 10.4 per game, which I guess wasn't too surprising, but I guess that kind of fits. I don't feel like he's doing it. I'm thinking of like Luka Doncic or James Harden or Jalen Brunson. It seems like they do it like all the time. You know, I don't feel like Dame's doing it all the time. But it's the 5th most. I forgot who was ahead of him, but either way, so he does it a lot in terms of the league average. There were 46 players who averaged more than 5 possessions per game of being the ball handler pick and roll. Dame has the 2nd best points per possession of those 40. So basically, in terms of guys who do this high volume, he's the 2nd best at points per possession. The first best was De'Aaron Fox at 1.18.
Oh wow.
And Dame had 1.12 points per possession. So that's outstanding. That, I mean, for being that high volume, it's kind of like 3-point shooting. You know, some guys are like, oh, he's a 53% 3-point shooter, but then you look at how many shots he takes, and it's, you know, nothing compared to like a Steph Curry or, you know, so like a volume matters as well as percentage and like points per possession and all these different stats. So for being that high volume and that high points per possession, that's top tier. That's like a, you know, all pro type of stat right there for Damian Lillard. So first third of the season, he's been outstanding.
Yeah, I think he's kind of falling into his role. And I was kind of thinking about it the other day as like, you know, the comparison that we've heard before from like Giannis and Chris is like Batman and Robin, right? That's always what they use for like the main guy, and then the second guy is kind of what they're at. But I think the problem is most people are expecting Dame to be like the new Robin, but I don't think that's his role at all. It's, you know, Chris is the ultimate Robin in the sense that like he has the ability to do a lot of things on his own, but he also makes Batman, Giannis in this case, better. Dame is like Batman 2. Like, I don't know another way to describe it, but he's like, you're not expected to be, you know, a complete second fiddle, but you are at the same time. But like when you are out there, you really have to be that main guy with some of these lineups that are out there. And I think I'm seeing that confidence grow some more, and he knows like, all right, when Giannis is out here, like it's kind of dumb not to give him the ball and feed it to him. I mean, even at that OKC game, Hartenstein is a huge dude, and he had Giannis running at him, and he just immediately was like, oh, shit, and kind of like half turned to almost like run, like obviously not exactly what he was doing, and just got hit and, got smoked in the process, drawing the foul. So, Dame sees that and is like, yeah, I'm going to give him the ball as often as possible, but he is starting to step up, I think, more when Giannis is off the court to realize, like, now it's me, run through me. I'm not going to just always be facilitating, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and actually, I randomly found took this note of one of the best lineup. So minimum 200 possessions. The Bucks have had the second best lineup in the league at a plus 20.7 net rating, and you will never guess what this lineup is, and you will never guess it because it does not include Giannis. Right? Oh. If you were to give me if you were to guess, like, again, give me another guess, every single one would have been like, okay, Giannis and
right.
No, the second best lineup in the league, minimum 200 possessions, is Dame, AJ Green, Trent Jr., Portis, and Lopez.
Wow.
It's like, I don't know how that's possible. Portis and I don't like Portis and Lopez together. Like, I don't want those lineups, but apparently it's been pretty good. But to your point, Dame is running those like non-Giannis lineups. And I think Doc has been purposefully doing that, where having Dame and Giannis kind of, take those lineups, especially with Chris out. It's like you want Dame or Giannis in. But I think even with Chris coming back, Doc is really leaning towards playing Chris with Giannis, which I think is a good idea because they're so good together. They just have that chemistry that everyone talks about. I mean, it's true. You watch them play and they're just awesome at connecting. And so I think Dame is the one who's getting less Giannis time, so to speak, which kind of, works to his, what he's good at and what he's done his whole career. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of normal for Dame. Playing with Giannis is the thing that he had to get used to. And I think it is finally now kind of working pretty well. But it's great that he can take those non-Giannis minutes and they don't suck. I mean, look at Denver. The non-Jokic minutes are so unbelievably bad compared to the Jokic minutes. It's crazy. Part of that is how Malone does his lineups, and he just has his starters together a lot, and so that's kind of different than what Doc is really having Giannis and Dame kind of like trade. But still, it's just we need someone to carry those lineups when our best players are gone or off the floor and need some rest. And so that's something that's worked this year. And I think Doc has done a pretty good job. And, sometimes I'm complaining, like, what are you doing with these lineups? But he's kind of figuring it out. And I think some things he's figured out to this point, pretty well. And I think he's still figuring out, some of these rotations and how to work, again, kind of switching Giannis and Dame and who's going to, how often are they going to be together and how much can they be apart? Because you do want them together, right? And you do want them to finish the game together. I think that's what I was complaining about. I think it was the end of the first half. Dame didn't come back until like a minute and a half left. I was like, what the hell is this rotation where Dame's not playing the last like 4 or 5 minutes? So yeah, some of it's weird, but I can kind of see where Doc's head is at. And I think it makes some sense. And with that stat of that lineup being so good after 200 plus possessions it kind of speaks to that a little bit.
I always wonder how much NBA players truly care about starting. I mean, I know there's always stuff with like to be an all-star, you have to have any starts or, contract things that have starts. But, the reality that we're dealing with now is like the way that like AJ Green has stepped up. Gary Trent Jr. seems to be playing much better. Chris Middleton seems to be healthy when he's not dealing with the flu. And then even Taurean Prince leading the league with his 3-point shooting, right?
Mm-hmm.
These are all guys coming off the bench. I mean, you have lineups obviously where Prince is starting and, they're going to figure some stuff out. But, you still, even if one of those people go to the starting role, those are still really, really good bench players. And I think it's amazing just how much this team has gone from like, Atlanta when we played them in the non-NBA Cup. that was a huge thing. We started out really strong, and then their bench came out and scored 40, and our bench had like 5. That was earlier in the season, but it's like that makes a huge difference. And I think that was some of the reasons why we were losing to the Pacers too. They had such a really good bench. And we kept thinking like, oh man, I'd like Jay Crowder coming in, and I don't know. I can't even remember half these names anymore.
What was that actually? Who was the Italian guy?
And that's what I was going to say. I thought Henderson we called him, or Gunderson.
Gallinari.
Daniel, yeah.
Yes.
Dan Gunderson, Daniel Gallinari.
Yeah, he had actually some good minutes in one playoff game, right? That we all loved him that one game.
Right.
Yeah.
But those aren't guys you want to see consistently coming off the bench. You'd be like, oh God, like what the hell are we doing here?
Exactly, yeah.
Having Trent come off the bench, Bobby come off the bench, currently Chris, I mean, like those are all like, oh my God, these are great pieces that, are going to fit in a lot of roles. So that's awesome that's the best lineup or second best lineup, because I definitely wouldn't have assumed it was our strongest, but the bench strength I think is just becoming a big strength all of a sudden.
Yeah, let's talk about AJ Green for a second. I hope he keeps this up. I mean, he's been so good. It's like, is this who he is? Because that's an awesome player, especially like you said, off the bench. That's such a good, a good player to have on your bench and can come in and just hit those threes consistently. That's the thing. It's like, and sure, he has a couple games here and there where he's 2 for 9 or something like that. That's going to be for anybody. But for the most part, he's consistently hitting these threes. He certainly has built himself as this player who you better guard him. Like he's no one's going to be surprised at this point. Like they're going to, on their scouting report, they're like, we got to guard this guy, like don't give him any room. But the thing I wanted to talk about with him is, at least I've only noticed this recently, the past few games, is he's starting to create his own shot, like up and for the most part, pretty much all of last year, he's all catch and shoot. Like if he's open, like he'll catch, he'll shoot. He's pretty quick release. That's awesome. It's one of the great things about him, why he's playing. But he never, he wouldn't really create his own shot. Occasionally he would do that dribble in for the, like 20-foot 2-point shot, kind of get the guy going, then like dribble and take the shot. But he had a shot. I was like surprised he took that shot. I think Hartenstein was right in front of him, and he just kind of dribbled it. It was like off the dribble, just pulled up and hit it. I was like, wow, I didn't expect that from AJ Green. And I think one of these a different NBA Cup game, he just dribbled up in transition and just pulled up. And I'm not sure I've seen him do that often. So a little bit more of him kind of having the confidence and creating his own shot. And it's a different type of shot. You got to catch and shoot. You have like off the dribble, coming around a screen. He can do that, obviously. But there's different types of 3-point shots, and not everyone is good at all of them. And he seems to be kind of like adding more to his arsenal. Like, it's not just catch and shoot. It's not just running around a screen. I can even do it off the dribble now. I can even like juke a guy and pull up. I haven't quite seen him do like a step back 3 that got popular the past few years. Maybe that's the next thing we'll see him do. But he's becoming like a real player. It's not like just all I do is catch the ball and shoot. You know what I mean? Like that limits you a lot. So he's kind of developing into like a Klay Thompson. I'm guessing he won't get to that level, but it's just more. It's someone who can play more minutes, for one. And on defense, we've talked about, he's holding his own. He can do that. So he's really building himself to be like a potential starter, a guy who plays like 30 plus minutes at some point. So that's been awesome. Hopefully that continues to progress.
Yeah, and I think that confidence is key. I mean, these guys get their shots from, a couple minutes here and there, and they really have to make the most of them. But, like a thing to remember is like these guys were like the best athletes their whole life until they got to like a certain level, and it's like, prove it, like whatever. So I'm sure that messes with them a lot to be like, man, am I actually good, or did I just have like shitty competition, or like what the hell's wrong? Like I think I'm good. I'm sure that messes with them quite a bit. So getting those minutes and being able to produce, like that confidence is coming where he's like, oh shit, like, yeah, I am good and I can continue to get better. And I have trust of these teammates. And you know, a lot of these guys, like the younger players, I'd be really interested to see kind of where their career goes as they develop, because playing with guys like Giannis and Dame and Chris and like these like amazing guys, it's like that has to be amazing to get their confidence versus some of the super young teams like the Thunder, not to like rip on them, but because we just played them, but they're like a young team. They don't have a lot of vets to be looking up to be like, you know, wow, I really have that confidence. I mean, SGA and Holmgren are still young, but they're by far the best players on the team. So, you know, it's hard to really grow that even further. So, yeah, I mean, these young guys, especially Green, is just, I don't know. I'm fine with him chucking it up 10 times a game.
Yeah,
I'd live
I
and
mean,
die with
he
those
probably
shots.
needs to shoot. Well, I mean, you know, he's gotten more and more confident where he'll shoot it when he's open, and I like that. You know, I want him to, if he's going to shoot 47% or whatever, like, yeah, you know, if you're open, shoot it every single time, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think he's kind of feeling that now. So, and like, yeah, and if he's kind of creating his own shot, as long as it's a good shot, you know, like Damian Lillard takes these difficult shots, but it's Damian Lillard, so we're okay with it. I mean, if anyone else on the Bucks was taking those Damian Lillard shots, we'd be like, "What the hell are you doing?" I mean, that's like
that would be actually kind
league.
of amazing just to see like somebody do that once, where you're like, "What are you doing?"
That shot from Damian Lillard where he dribbled down to the corner and was like moving to the side, falling back, did like a step back as he's moving to the side, falling away. Shot. It's like, I can't believe you just took that shot and he made it. It's like, wow, that's awesome. But like, that looked like a high level of difficulty. I'm not sure it had to be that difficult, but I mean, he probably practices that shot, you know, thousands of times. And for him, it's like not a low percentage shot. But it looked like, you know, maybe 1 out of 15 times you'll make this. That's kind of what it looked like watching it. Yeah, so not many guys can do that. And that's the thing about Dan. And you see his 3-point percentage, I think it's 37% right now, which is actually, you know, pretty good, but it's not, you know, it's not 40, it's not 45, it's not Taurean Prince 52%. But he takes such difficult shots. So that's like 37% when half of the shots are like step back 30 footers and falling to the side and, you know, all this different stuff. Like, to be 37% on all of that is pretty impressive. And so as long as you're picking your spots where it's not like there's 20 seconds on the shot clock and you're taking this dumb shot for no reason. As long as you're picking your spots and they make sense and they're in rhythm and they're the kinds of shots that you can make consistently, then that's great. And I think, you know, obviously he's one of the best players. So yeah, I think he's pretty good at kind of knowing when to do that and when not to. And so far this year, it's been better than last year. It's been great. You know, I guess I haven't compared it to like, you know, 5 years ago, like, you know, kind of prime Dame seasons. But it is better than last year, and it's back to an all-pro season, like we were saying. So that's awesome.
Yeah, he's gelling at the right time. He's committed. You know, working out. He's got some of his personal stuff figured out. I mean, he's ready to ball now, and you know, getting Chris back and this team healthy is going to be huge. I mean, like the sky's the limit at this point. Like, we're even in games where we weren't fully healthy against like Boston, like we came out to play and we made it a close game, and like there's really should be lots of confidence for everybody. The way that the team's been playing.
What's interesting coming into this, OKC was talked about as the best team in the league, I would say, even better than Boston, at least from podcasts I'm listening to and whatever else. You know, it's just one game. You know, we watched them play and they missed a lot of, you know, if they made 5 more threes, it would have been a close game. And like, you'd expect them to make 5 more threes, I guess. So, but I guess I'm just kind of asking, like, what's your general impression? I don't know how much OKC you've seen, but from watching that, at the very least, you watched this whole game. You know, what's your impression of them? Do you think they're overrated, or do you think, you know, they are one of the best teams, or like what in terms of like what they're good at, what they're not good at? What do you take out of it?
I mean, you're right. I don't watch a lot of OKC games, but you know, the biggest thing on this is like the all defensive NBA team. Like they have some like amazing defensive players on this team. And so that's a huge part of it. Like if you're playing really good defense, like your offense, you just have to kind of be average with great defense to get a win. I mean, that's kind of the way it can work. But when you come across a team like the Bucks, where we are, I mean, you're going to have the stat of what we're ranked offensively now, but I mean, we were growing and growing with the rankings as far as how good this offense was. So they kind of ran into a buzzsaw. Like it was either going to be they were going to shut us down or get absolutely destroyed, and that's obviously what happened. So, of course they're going to be a contender. The West is obviously super difficult, but relying on defense. I mean, we'll see if that is the formula because it used to definitely be the case, and then offense kind of reigns supreme. But you have to find that balance, and if they're too heavily focused on defense and have a night like this where they shoot 1 of 18 or 2 of 18, whatever that stat was for three, like that's going to just get them killed.
Yeah. I wonder what they would, so if this were a 7-game series, kind of curious how they would change their defensive strategy. Cause it seemed like we could get an open 3 anytime we wanted it. They were just so closed in on the lane for Giannis. So, every single time down, just like so afraid, like we're not going to let Giannis just dunk it every time. And they didn't trust, one guy to stop him, which I guess you shouldn't. But, for some reason it seemed, maybe I'm wrong, but it seemed like OKC was leaving guys open. Like maybe they were just too closed in compared to like a Boston. I feel like Boston is better at defending, both defending Giannis and defending the 3. And so maybe they need to make some adjustments, or do they not have the personnel? Or, maybe Boston leans on Horford to kind of do a little bit better, like one-on-one defending, which he probably is better. But that's one thing I noticed throughout the game is just like, honestly, I felt like Giannis should have done more of thinking like pass first, like I'm going to get the ball. I'm going to like pretend that I'm about to go to the rim, and then I'm going to dish it out and get a wide open 3. Honestly, I shouldn't complain about how he played because it was great. But I felt like anytime we wanted it, like that was just like get it to Giannis, and then he'll dish it out, and we'll have an open 3. And it was like maybe OKC was just giving us that, or I'm not sure, or they're just too slow on the rotations, or it's just impossible. You got to pick your poison kind of a thing. So yeah, that'd be a fun series to watch and kind of see how things change and how they kind of change their strategies.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I mean, I think Boston, part of the reason that you mentioned that they have success against Milwaukee usually is I think they respect the rest of our team, so that they come up with a Giannis plan, but they're also like, all right, Giannis isn't the only one that can beat us. So we have to make sure that we're kind of playing accordingly, where these other teams, I don't know if they're not scouting or what it is, but they're like, let's just shut Giannis down and then we'll live and die by the rest of the team. And it's like, yeah, you will die because we do have too many good shooters, and we have all this plan that, it's the ultimate formula that any team would want to recreate right now. You have a huge 7-footer that's super fast and strong that can crash the lane, and then all these great shooters around him. Denver's got the model where Jokic is just going to post up, but it's the same concept, a huge force down low and the shooters around you. That's kind of what these other teams are trying to figure out. But, personnel, to your point, is a huge problem. You can't have a Giannis or a Jokic on every team. You can get a Rudy Gobert, but that changes things because that's a defensive help. And, he's not a offensive liability, but he's not even comparable to Jokic or Giannis in those cases. So it's a little bit of the strategy and the personnel at the same time. I know it's not a clear answer, but I think that's where I'm landing.
Yeah, I guess that's kind of what I was comparing to Boston. Maybe a little bit, probably too much, but it just seemed, based on one game, it does seem like Boston is better than OKC. And yeah. I'm hearing all the talk I'm hearing is OKC's better than Boston. Like they're the top team. There's not a ton of talk, but people are kind of throwing that out there. And after watching that game, it just seems like, I don't know, I think Boston has a little bit more talent, a little bit more pieces. Like they have like a Peyton Pritchard. Maybe it's just against the Bucks, but yeah. I mean, honestly, he's one of 3 guys with over 100 threes this season so far. So like he's having a good season, right? Not just against the Bucks, but it seems like Pritchard can kind of take over in, you know, parts of a game when they need it. And it's like, who on OKC outside of Shea is doing that kind of a thing? You know, and Boston has Tatum and Brown, and, you know,
Derek White.
White can hit all those threes, and it's just, they have a lot of guys. And OKC, I'm not sure those guys can really take over. I'm sure some of them can get hot from three. I'm sure at certain games they're probably like 5 for 6 or whatever. But, you know, Caruso and Isaiah Joe and Dort, you know, none of them seem like guys that are going to kind of go on a 10-point run, or, you know, just kind of like pick up the whole team. You know, they'll hit shots here and there, and they'll be kind of important pieces, but I don't see them really really giving that team the lift that's needed. You know, like Shea seems like really the only guy that does that. And like, so that was another thing I noticed, kind of just like, I don't know, it seems like Boston is a better team, you know, than OKC. And I'm kind of curious if OKC can make it to that championship game with just Shea being that guy, you know. And Chet obviously is awesome, and he, you know, we'll see when he gets back, that's going to help him a lot. That'd be another interesting thing too, is like, can Chet, I don't think Chet can guard Giannis. I don't, maybe he can. He's supposedly like, you know, the top 3 defender in the league from the talk. But he's just so small, right? Or like like skinny, you know. It just doesn't, it's hard to imagine him guarding Giannis, but he is a really good shot blocker. So I guess I'd be curious to kind of see, like, can he do that? Can he block Giannis and not foul him? So that'd be fun. Yeah, I mean, it's a really fun matchup. I'd love to play them more. You know, we play them like once a year or something. I remember we played them last March, so we probably have them on the schedule at some point. But yeah, it'd be a fun team to play more often, or get in a series with, which, you know, isn't going to happen unless it's a championship. So, but yeah, it was a really fun game to watch. I like these matchups that don't happen, that like I talk about Denver. I wish we played Denver in a series. That'd be so fun. But some of these West Coast teams, we just never even play them at all, you know, like 1-2 times. And so, it was fun to get another matchup in there.
Yeah, I agree. It was a good game, and it was good to have a young up and coming team like that. I don't, you know, the West is so hard to follow when you're in the more East side, because just those games are so late. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think there's, all the love goes to the West Coast teams. I get it. There are a lot of really good players, great teams. The records show it, but I think the East also beats each other up a lot. You know, and I think that's kind of part of it. Like, you can see the teams that in the West that are the best are easily the best, and the other ones are the worst. In the East, like, there's still a lot of like fight in some of these teams. You know, Detroit is still a hard win. Washington, I mean, maybe not so much, but they're not going to just, you know, roll over. Whereas some of these Western teams, I think, kind of, you get that feeling like this is going to be an absolute blowout from like the second quarter. So, yeah, maybe it's just the lack of support for the Eastern Conference.
Yeah. Yeah. Respect the Eastern Conference. Come on now. We just won the NBA Cup. Yeah. Anything else on the NBA Cup, or should we move to Flop Corner?
I think Flop Corner sounds good.
Okay. So, you know, Flop Corner, before I say this, you know, some people are going to come at, some of our audience might come at me as, you know, being sexist or racist or some other ist, but I'm going to say it anyway. All right. Because this is, I think this is Flop Corner worthy. And I'm not going to pretend to be a fan of the WNBA, by the way, either. But I have to talk about this WNBA thing that's been going on for too long now. You know, when Caitlin Clark came into the league, we saw a lot of WNBA players, coaches, owners talk about Caitlin Clark when she came into the league, and it was outrageous. It was just, the disrespect was off the charts, with just refusing to give her flowers for being an incredible basketball player. Not only that, but obviously being the reason that so many more people are watching the games, going to the games. It's so clear, you know, you could see the numbers in college, like how many people watched the Final Four, the, you know, March Madness, the women's March Madness was just, you know, skyrocketed with Caitlin Clark. And yet they refused to give her, like, to say that she was the reason for this, or at least the main reason. You don't even have to say like she's the only reason, but they refused to say she was the main reason, or like she's like huge reason why we're getting so much more popularity. Okay, so then that kind of went away a little bit because she was incredible. She finished 4th in MVP voting. So, I mean, she had a great, as a rookie, she was 4th in the MVP rating. So, that kind of went away a little bit. It was just in the beginning when she was kind of getting her legs under her as a rookie and it wasn't like incredible that they were, felt good enough to disrespect her. Okay, but for some reason, this is coming back. And it came back with Sheila Johnson, who I did not know before this, but she is the Washington Mystics owner. She went out of her way to bring Caitlin Clark down to the level of mediocre all-star in this interview that happened. And this all came up because Caitlin Clark was named, what was she named?
Athlete of the Year, I think.
Athlete of the Year. There it is. Yeah. Okay, so because she was named Athlete of the Year, now this is coming up again. And Sheila Johnson said, so many players are equally as talented. Like, what are you doing? Why do you think you have to say that? Do we say that about anybody else who's awesome? It's just like LeBron James comes into the league. Is someone actually going to say so many players are equally as talented as LeBron James? Victor Wembanyama. Is anyone saying so many players are equally as talented as Victor Wembanyama? No one in their right mind is saying that. Okay, it's the same situation. Caitlin Clark is a generational talent. It's just undeniable. The stats are there. The eye test is there. Everything is there. She brought her team to the Final Four 2 years in a row. She brought a bad Indiana Fever team to the playoffs her first year. She, again, 4th in MVP rating as a rookie. It's just like, she's really good at basketball. Okay, you don't have to say she's the best player ever. You don't have to, hyperbolize this so much, but you can't say so many players are equally as talented. That's just wrong. Okay. But also, let's look at. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to respond that it sounds like a mom who's talking about her kids. Where it's like, well, Billy got an A in his report card. Well, all my kids are equally talented as Billy. Like Billy is equally talented. But the difference is if Billy is like the 4th MVP vote getter and his little sister Susie is a kindergarten teacher, like it's okay to say that Billy is really good at basketball. Like we're not even talking about Sally's job. Like just shut up for a second. Like, and that's the thing. It's like, we don't have to talk about all WNBA players at the same time. It is okay to talk about one at a time. And if there is one person that, let's just say she was average, if she's still the only reason we're even talking about the WNBA, can you at least acknowledge that it's not like your league just started and people are talking about it? It's been around for a long time and nobody watched it. Now they're watching it. So at the very minimum, comment like, wow, everybody's watching it because of this person. That's great.
Exactly.
Like, I don't understand it.
Okay, exactly. And so, yeah, she also said, you can't pin the WNBA success to just one player. Okay, she went out of her way to say that. Really, Sheila? You sure about that? You sure about that? That's why? Okay, let's look at some numbers here. The Indiana Fever had an average of 4,066 fans in the 2023 season before Caitlin.
4,000.
Okay, this is WNBA we're talking about. Okay, 4,000 though. They had over 17,000 on average in 2024. Wow. Okay, it's a 319% increase. Okay, the next largest increase from year to year, 23 to 24, were the Los Angeles Sparks with a 69% increase. Okay, the Fever had a 319% increase. Next best team, 69%. All right, also, when the Indiana Fever traveled, those teams that were hosting the Fever saw an 87% increase in attendance on average. What's awesome and hilarious is the team that saw the largest increase were the Washington Mystics. Sheila Johnson's teams saw an uptick of 260% when Caitlin Clark visited. You moron. What are you saying? Do they know what they're saying? Do you think they know and they just refuse? I don't know. It's ridiculous and it had to be called out.
I think that there's too many. I'm just going after the reporters of the WNBA right now. Women reporters who are talking about the WNBA who are pissed off that this league existed and they were so focused on it, but it's only getting the attention now. And the only way they can react to it is to shit on themselves, which is like, you got to just embrace what's happening. Like, it's the league is growing. Your job is potentially more secure because more people are watching. Like, just acknowledge that there could be somebody that is like significantly better. And I honestly, I don't know. I don't know if they don't know what they're talking about, but I feel like they just become so defensive when the topic comes up. Like, instead of saying like, hey, are you celebrating the fact that Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever are bringing, these ticket sales spikes? Well, people were still coming to my game. Yeah, that's great. Like 4,000 were coming to your game and now you've, tripled it. So let's have that conversation. But she sounds very much like Kristen Wiig's character on Saturday Night Live, the one that would like, respond with her own thing. They're like, oh, I want a dog. I got a dog too. It's like, that's just the way that they all are responding to the WNBA. It's getting old and, yeah, it's frustrating.
It's funny to see a generational talent in the NBA at the same time. You have Victor Wembanyama and the way that he's entering the league and like so much hype. Everybody loves him. The only positive talk about like from anybody. I haven't heard anything negative about him. And yeah. So it's like it's on that side, it's almost like they're begging people to like watch the game, watch this guy. He's amazing. You got to see him play. On the other side, you have all of this anti-publicity essentially for Caitlin Clark from the WNBA side of things. Kind of like, oh, she's just, she's just another player. We got lots of good players. Yeah. And yet the audience, the fans are flocking, like despite all the negative talk. But yeah, it's interesting that at the same time, we have a generational talent that, once every 10, 20 years kind of comes into the league with this kind of a hype. And just how different they're both being approached.
Yeah, the anti-publicity is the correct way to word that for sure. It's just, it's baffling. It's almost like they're going out of their way to like tank the entire league because, I would say a huge portion of people that don't watch the WNBA because they think, women are fill in the blank with whatever they think. Mm-hmm. Having women attacking other women for having success in the league is just adding fuel to those people's like vision. And so it's like, at the very least, like you have to know that exists out there. So like, wouldn't you kind of go out of your way to make sure like the one thing I don't want it to do is feed into what people already assume our league is. And then you go out and do that. So then people are like, see, I told you, that's why I don't watch it.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Get your shit together, WNBA. I think you had one more thing for us.
Well, we kind of talked about it in the beginning, but once again, we're going to call it ESPN. We might just have an ongoing segment, which is how dumb they are. And for those of you that are listening and think I'm wrong, pull your head out of your ass. ESPN is the worst. The whole network just went down the drain. It's absolute dog crap. But anyway, the part that we had, we've talked about how they reported on the Sixers situation, making it seem like it was a bigger deal. Well, the Bucks win the cup. Giannis immediately says the job's not done, and ESPN posts that Giannis says the job's done. Great job, ESPN. Like, we couldn't have heard, like, the internet exists. We could hear what he said. Even people that aren't Bucks fans are going to be like, oh, let me hear the clip. Like, I really don't understand what you're doing anymore. I think you just, at this point, like, fire everybody, have open competition be like, here's the salary. It's $1 million and you get to talk about sports for a living. And that's where we're going to start over. But the other day on Monday Night Football, the studio, it's like, I don't even know who you're dragging out there anymore to like announce on these games. And they're all wearing these super colorful, super tight suits. Why do you have to wear a suit to talk about sports? I don't understand it. I think they should change it to either you have to wear the most flamboyant suit in the world, like just like obnoxious, or you have to dress like either a player or manager of the sport you're talking about. More people would tune in to watch baseball tonight if they're either dressed head to toe in a full baseball outfit or a crazy suit. You know, if they're talking about NBA, crazy suit or like jersey, or like the warm up stuff, like the Jay Bayless. No, Jay Billis.
Oh yeah,
yeah. He's always like looks like he's about to like coach or like come into the game.
Okay, yeah.
But just to pull like the fact that ESPN has to put up people's resumes to be like, and I don't hate Ryan Clark, but I'm going to pick on him here to be like, hey, Ryan Clark, for those of you who don't know who he is, we're not surprised because here's his resume. He's been in the league for a while, but why would you know him and why did we pick him and like be surprised that he makes $8 million a year? Like, what the hell are you even doing? I don't understand this anymore. So ESPN is dog shit. Just want to make sure that we're very clear on that.
Yeah, it was made clear when the TNT crew like joined with the ESPN crew for the pregame of one of those NBA Cup games. And and it was pretty great because the ABC ESPN pregame was terrible. And then the TNT guys joined and it was awesome.
Yeah.
For a few minutes. And then it sucked again. The best part about that was the TNT crew calling him out. They were saying, like, are we going to have to talk about the Lakers all the time? It seemed like the ESPN guys were a little defensive when they asked them that, actually. I don't know how much real tension is there, but I don't know. It was fun.
I mean, they have to know that their product is garbage. I mean, they have to. Like, I mean, they'll sit there and be like, oh, the TNT show is awesome. And it is. And then they couldn't tell you why their show is any better than anything else on any network, whether it's FanDuel, DraftKings, ESPN, Fox News, like whatever these channels are, it's the same formula. Two guys that you barely know who they are, yelling at each other, and then followed by the next show, which is the same thing. And then they all complain that they get paid way too much money because you pay them way too much money. They're making more money than they played as a professional athlete. Talking about it. Doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. Before we sign off, I had one more thing kind of related to that. Is on Colin Cowherd's show, some guy who I've never heard of said that he thought that the TNT NBA show has done the most damage to the league than anything else in the past 10 years.
How so?
Okay, so on Twitter, someone said like, yes, this is true, or they agreed with it, and I was like, what are you talking about? And their comment was about how the TNT guys will sometimes talk about how like they don't even know who a guy is, or they didn't even watch that game. Right. So like occasionally, they'll make comments like that, like whoever this guy is off the bench. So that's what he alluded to, that fact that they, don't always know everything and kind of admit to not knowing everything and not watching everything. In addition to, I guess, like kind of negativity, sometimes being negative about certain players or teams. So that was their side of it. Okay. My side of it was, it's not a bullshit show and every single other show is bullshit. So it's great. But I mean, I guess the point was not that the show is bad. The point was that they're saying they're doing damage to the league. And I mean, I don't buy it. I don't think people are hearing that they are, criticizing some player or some team or like something the NBA is doing. Maybe they were like making fun of the NBA Cup probably. I think that's just being honest. And I think people appreciate honesty. And that doesn't mean that the NBA Cup's not going to succeed because we're having some fun kind of joking around in its first couple of years, kind of making fun of it here and there. I personally like don't think it's going to go that far, but maybe that's kind of maybe what they're saying is like that negativity is now, okay, now you're against the NBA Cup and you're against XYZ and you're kind of negative for the league. That's what they were saying.
I mean, I guess I can try to understand where they're coming from. TNT does a segment of where does this guy play or what team does he play for or something along those lines.
Okay.
It's fun, but look, the honesty is you watch an ESPN show and it's way too serious. Like, it's sports. It's supposed to be fun. It's an escape. Like, this is what it is. It's not just fun. They get paid millions of dollars. It's a business. I get it. But at the end of the day, we're not watching it except to have fun. Like, that's what it is. Like, this is going to be fun for me to sit there and watch this. And ESPN is so serious that how dare you not know who the third string punter is on the practice squad that was signed 2 weeks ago and then released and then picked up somewhere else. Like, I know everything about him. Bullshit. Like, it's okay to be like, I don't know who this guy is. You know, like, I don't know who he is. I look at the Bucks bench and I don't know who that big, tall, white dude is. I don't know who he is. He's having a fun time. Oh, it might be Robbins. Yeah, you're right. Okay. But it's okay to be like, I don't know where he played basketball in college. I don't know how long he's been there. Like, I don't know that I've, whatever. Like, it's okay to do it if your job is like, number one, you got guys with really good personalities that are like, I honestly believe when you see those guys, that's their personality. Mm-hmm. The people on ESPN their soul is gone from their body and they have zero personality and they have no idea how to function outside of being an ESPN person. Like, you watch a commercial for ESPN bets. Mike Greenberg is just a robot now. Like, he doesn't even know what he's doing. He doesn't have any personality. He just does whatever ESPN tells him to do. He looks so unnatural doing it. It's just, you don't buy into any of these personalities. ESPN or TNT, that's why like people are like, oh, who's your dream like golf foursome? Like, yeah, it's probably those guys, like in some capacity. It's nobody on ESPN. You have no personality. Everything's way too serious. You suck all the fun out of it. And then for some reason you have to wheel out what's the guy's name? Chris Berman. Why is Chris Berman
still around?
Yes. On Monday Night Football, he comes out and does the segment he did 20 years ago, the fastest 2 minutes in sports or whatever it is.
Yeah.
You're telling me there's not another person that could do that? You have to pay Chris Berman, who wanted to retire, who was retired. You wheel him on out, pay him a lot of money to do it because there's not a single person in the world that can do what Chris Berman does. Are you kidding me? Like, what the hell?
The thing that I think the authenticity is what makes the TNT crew work. And it's them admitting that they don't know the guy, admitting that they didn't watch that game. That actually is a whole part of it because now we believe them. And now when they're joking around, we believe it and it feels more real and it feels like we're hanging out with friends as opposed to kind of a forced joke. Oh, we're supposed to have fun here. Let's kind of joke around for 2 minutes, which you kind of feel with some of the ESPN crews. Kind of that's how it feels sometimes. The TNT crew, it's just like, it just feels natural. It feels authentic. They're real. And also there is real analysis too. It's not just some like bullshit show. Like we're just kind of having fun and we don't care. Like they do have really good analysis, in addition to it. And so just the mix of that. And again, I think it only works if you're totally authentic all the way through. And so you have to admit, oh, I didn't know that guy off the bench who just hit 4 threes this game. Like I'd never heard of him before, like,
right. Yeah.
It's kind of refreshing as a viewer to be like, oh, okay. They're humans, they don't know all, 350 players or however many there are. It's like, of course they don't know every single thing. And to hear them admit it is actually a good thing, to hear them.
And for some of these players, like, it's probably better to get that like recognition to be like, hey, they didn't know who I was, but I had a big game and now they're talking about me and learning about me like everybody else. Whereas like ESPN on the flip strip is like, oh yeah, you didn't know that guy? Like, are you an idiot? He obviously played here. Like, let's move on. It's like, okay, like, I'm sorry that I'm not like a total nerd like you are, but you didn't even know that. You're just being told. Like, the TNT guys are learning with you. It's like it's the thing. It's the thing that ESPN is missing with sports. Like, sports are fun when you're just hanging with your friends, watching a game. You know, celebrating those moments together that are big, making fun of little stupid things together. Like, that's what the TNT crew is doing, and that's the formula that ESPN can't figure out.
Yeah. Well, hopefully the Inside the NBA crew continues the exact same show next year, because I guess I don't totally understand. They're on ESPN, or they're on ESPN and NBC? What was it? Do you remember?
They still get to do the show, and then one of those networks will air it.
Okay, maybe it's just ESPN. I mean, it's for sure ESPN because they talked about
for sure ESPN.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting. But yeah, hopefully it's just like same show as it always has been.
I hope so.
So, okay, I think that'll do it. Yeah, the life lesson, be authentic. And that'll do it for us. Subscribe and rate us on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. Email us at doubledribblebucks@gmail.com. We're missing the fan mail this week. Let's get some questions coming in. And follow us on Twitter at PodDDB. Until next time, go Bucks.